everyone, Daniel Kerr here. I'm on the way to the skate park with my son, and I want to talk a little bit about the flow state. You are watching the Emerging Biology Network, and my series is called Becoming Superhuman. Thank you, Mama. All right, I almost left my phone at the house. Okay, I want to talk about the flow state. A lot of people have discussed this flow state, and it has become the subject of much internet lore. Right? The flow state is when you are suddenly thrust into a position where everything comes effortlessly. All right. Sometimes you hit this certain state when you basically become what they call in the zone or on a roll, and you see it often in extreme sports, from MMA fights to skateboarding. You see in boxing quite a bit, or even basketball or football players. It happens in chess. It happens in games of Jeopardy. It happens on when people are debating other people, or certain things happen. Basically, it just seems when you're in this state, you enter this state, and just everything seems to kind of slow down for you, and you can focus, and everything becomes effortless. It's almost like a Zen moment where you are just able to sink every pocket and pool, where you're able to just like rebut every argument in a debate or in a discussion, when you're just able to land every trick. The opponents are just unable to touch you. You're basically like, you see Vasyl Lomachenko when he's boxing. You know, you're trying to punch him, but it's like punching the air because the dude is just not there, right? And this flow state, there's a lot of people, they have some breathing techniques or these things that they try to tell you to help you enter this flow state, okay? The thing about it is that it's very romanticized, but in reality, the flow state can be achieved easily without any real effort, okay? Once you start putting a lot of effort into trying to achieve this flow state, and you're like thinking about things, you start to overthink it. It becomes more complicated than it needs to be, and in reality, it just frustrates you and keeps you from achieving this state. All right, it's like trying to attain the love of a specific female or something that you've been chasing. A lot of people, like, they obsess over girls until the point where they've kind of like broken down. They've built a wall of separation between them and this other person. Right? That happens with the elusive flow state. Right? Flow state is really just associated with pure joy, okay? So anytime that you've been like super, super happy, you might be having a terrible day at work, right? And everything just seems to go wrong, but if you suddenly found out that you won the lottery, you just had to finish your day at work, your day at work would just fly by. It wouldn't even be any problem any longer. You would be operating in a state of pure joy, and everything that you needed to do, all of your responsibilities, would suddenly just, they would just become second nature, right? There would be no stress because you knew that you were completely secure, okay? It's the same thing as when people get into business and whatnot. If they're already wealthy, if they have a nice like chunk of money, like, a big security nest egg like sitting behind them, the business itself becomes effortless because you're basically able to keep that security of knowing that you really just everything is going to be okay, right? That security, right? So when I enter the flow state, I have certain things that I dwell on that happened to me in the past. There's a lot of them. I'll give you two examples. One of them, about a year ago, I was at the skateboard park. I was trying 3 or 4 specific tricks, right? And everything was okay. It was a good day and everything, but I was about to leave, and my friend Alex showed up, and I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And I was so happy to see him. And I wanted him to see what I was working on, and I turned around and I blasted through that park, and I landed all 4 of the tricks I was working on. One of them I had been trying to land for like a year, and I was unable. It was absolutely just not there. And at that moment, I just went through there and I smashed all 4 of those tricks without even thinking about it, right? Okay, The next example I want to give is a few years back, many years back, 15 years ago, before I was ever a Christian or anything else. I basically decided I was going to quit drinking and I was going to quit smoking cigarettes, right? But I still went to the local bar that night with my girl and I wanted to shoot some pool, right? Well, something about that positive change I made in my life gave me just this like really, really on point, like in the zone, like mental state. And I just was able to effortlessly destroy everyone on the pool table, one after the other after the other. I'm a good pool shooter anyway, but that night it was just on fire. No one could even get a shot. And so, it was kind of built up the ego, reinforced that state of mind. I felt like I was untouchable, right? It was just one of those things, right? Both of those situations, they're 15 years apart. But when I'm in a situation now, if I know I have some studying to do, if I know that I have to like smash a certain amount of information in a short amount of time, if I know I'm going to go out and shoot pool with some friends, if I know that I'm going to go skateboarding, if I'm going to be on the slopes, if I'm going to be working, watching Jeopardy with my wife, I mentioned that a couple of times. Basically I can invoke one of these flow states just by thinking about that moment. One of those moments I gave you, there's others, lots of them. And as you begin to invoke these moments, you begin to create new moments and you need to invoke those as well, right? But I can remember, like that day my boy showed up at the skate park, I can remember the way my skin felt. I can remember the way the breeze felt, right? I can remember I can picture myself turning around to go through the park and land all those tricks, right? And when I invoke that scenario and I think about that, I basically put myself back there again and I'm able to enter into that flow state and crush the tasks at hand, right? And there are some bad days, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes there are, but they're so few and far between. And I can enter this flow state 9 times out of 10. And if I can't, sometimes I just really need to just forget about the task, right? Because if you become frustrated, like I mentioned earlier, nothing good is going to happen for you, right? So sometimes I just forget about the task at hand. I'll completely immerse myself in a completely separate activity or a separate endeavor. And then out of the blue, I'll come back to that task once I've been able to sufficiently distract myself, okay? So now I want to talk about these things and get a little deeper, right? When you find yourself in a flow state, remember what your breath feels like. Remember what you're listening to. Remember what you're seeing. Remember the colors. Remember any songs that are playing, right? Sometimes if things are happening for me and it's amazing, I will picture a specific song in my head. There might not be any music, but I'm listening to a song in my head just so that I know when I come back to that scenario and I need to invoke that experience, I can basically picture that song in my head and do what I need to do to immerse myself back into that state and crush the project at hand, right? So if I want to take that even a step deeper, the Bible says the joy of the Lord is my strength, all right? And the Lord, that word Lord in the Koine Greek, it means authority, supreme in authority, right? So the joy that the authority has granted me is my strength. It's what sustains me. It's what puts me in that state. The Apostle Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, he always talked about rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. He would repeat that. All the time he's telling people to rejoice. He's in prison. They're beating him. They're flogging him. They're stoning him and leaving him for dead. All these terrible things happened to this man. And he was persecuted for spreading, his belief in Jesus and the love of Jesus. And the whole time he's blowing that stuff off like it's water off a duck's back. He's saying, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. And they were frustrated. You can be sure they were frustrated because you can't crush somebody who has the joy of the Lord, right? So, yeah, here's the summary of what I'm saying. When you enter into a flow state, you'll know it. Everything's working for you. Remember those moments. Think back to a time when that happened to you before. Remember those moments and archive them so that you can mentally pull them up and invoke them during a time of need, right? enter the flow state. Next thing, get into the Word and find out what the Bible has to say about joy and strength. And make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Brand new stuff here. There's going to be a lot more. Make sure that you like this video and share it if you really love it. Be blessed.